right, welcome to 3 to the Left. 3 to the Left brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years, the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with Julian McWilliams, CBS national sports writer. We're going to get right into it. Julian, how are you today?
I'm good, Lenny. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding, man. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get right into it. Talk to me about this road trip. What'd you think? Was it disappointing, mildly frustrating, a 2-4? You think you'd be a little bit better than that after that run they went on?
Yeah, Lenny, I feel like it could be seen as frustrating, but at the same time, I think they played really good games there, right? I mean, you're looking at each of those games; they seem to be relatively close, especially in the Houston series. They drubbed them the second game and beat them 12-0, and then came back and lost the third one 4-1. But if you're looking at it in its totality, I think it's been a second half that they were in survival mode, right? Because you're playing all those teams. You're playing the Dodgers. You're playing the Astros. You're playing the Cubs. I know they haven't been playing well as of late, but they were really playing really well at the time. And they're playing all these. They're playing the Phillies, and all of a sudden they end up 9-9 through in those 18 games. So I think you got to take from this and being like, okay, we survived that. We're still in hold of a playoff spot. That's I think is going to come down to the nitty gritty. It's going to come down to the end of the season for me. I think with all three wild card teams, or four if you include Cleveland. But then if you're looking at it in its totality, I think it's just been a really good road trip and a really good second half for them. If you're looking at the standings itself.
Yeah, it's important to be able to go out there and win against good teams. 2-4, 6 game stretch against San Diego, Houston. At the end of the day, you're only 1 game back after going 2-4. So a lot of the
Yeah.
teams around them ended up losing, which did them a favor. The frustrating part for me, game two, San Diego, you got a loss by 1 run in extra innings.
Yeah.
Giolito, 6 walks. He kind of just lost his mechanics. He lost his feel. In game one in Houston, I felt like they could have taken that. Crochet. This is a guy where you're basically guarantee a win every time he touches the baseball every 5 days, but he just didn't have his day. It was a 1 run loss. You've got the walks with the walk with for Hicks and the home run right after that. It's hard to not be frustrated when you have so many 1 run losses and so many extra inning losses throughout this season.
And the David Hamilton bunt, right? I think
Oh,
that was the most frustrating part for me, Lenny. I think I even tweeted like he was drag bunting on a sacrifice. Like there's no reason for you to be bunting for a hit in this situation. I don't even care if you run to first base, right? The goal is for you, like we're giving up this out. We know this is an out. Like bunt it somewhere down at third base line. Make sure you get it down there. If you got to walk back to the dugout, walk back to the dugout. Don't even run to first base but he was leaning toward first base, bunting for a hit like he's Ichiro Suzuki. And all they need is a sacrifice to get the runner to third base. That for me was the killer right there.
yeah, in real time, we're sitting there broadcasting. We're saying, okay, what's he doing? Why is he trying to bunt for a base hit? The important thing is to get the bunt down. And that's stuff that you learned early on. At the big league level, it's too late. And it goes back to, for me, it goes back to doing the small things right. Good teams, winning teams, teams that make to the playoffs and go further are teams that can do little things like that. Drop a bunt down, kind of a lost art that you don't see anymore in batting practice. Guys laying down bunts before they take those big hacks.
No, I was watching the Twins Tigers game last night, Lenny. I was watching those guys. I think they played extra inning game as well. And those bunts that they were putting down, I mean, like popping it into the air, almost biting off almost hitting somebody in the lip. It's like, geez, man, I didn't think that. I don't want to make this a bunting segment, but those things matter in those games, and I think all those things, putting the ball in play, not striking out, all those things tend to matter, particularly as you get down to a playoff race and into the playoffs, as the Red Sox hope they get into.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the number of 1 run losses, I mean, they're leading the league in extra innings. Wins, they're tied, and losses, they've got a hold on that. What does it say about a team that goes out and continually is in games, but they're losing so many of these by 1 run? And I think a lot of it has to do with the starting pitching this last go around. You need people to
Yeah.
step up, doing the small things when you're hitting the ball and the starters aren't going 5 innings or they're losing it toward the end of the game. That's going to kind of show you how important that is.
Yeah. So, Lee, so my question for you is like, as the person who's been through this, right? Like you're seeing, like, okay, Garrett Crochet is like entering uncharted territory, right? In terms of where he is in innings pitched. Lucas Giolito, first year back from injury, he's probably feeling it a little bit. Walker Buehler, he's second two-time Tommy John guy. Like, you have all these guys, Carlos Narvaez, a guy who hasn't necessarily done this before, and now they have to have three guys on a roster. What's it like for a pitcher toward the tail end of the season? And even probably, you're not a catcher, but I know you obviously had a relationship with catchers because you were a pitcher yourself. But like, what's it like for those in those dog days as you're getting to it, particularly for guys who've never been through it?
It's funny you asked that because a few weeks ago, remember when Garrett Crochet had that game where they were thinking about pushing him back a few days and they decided to,
Yeah,
or they were either going to push him back or throw him 80 pitches, right? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, you can't have Garrett Crochet go out there and throw 80 pitches, 5 innings. So he decided to get pushed back, which is understandable. Either one of those will work. But at the time, people were saying, all right, why do anything at all? Just let the guy go out there. He's the pig,
right.
right? He's sick every time out. But I tell you what, when you're talking about uncharted territory, that's where it's extremely important to be able to give him just a little bit of extra rest, because you know what, he's not used to this right now. He's not used to going out there and throwing this many innings, this many pitches per season. So it's there are numbers out there, and we talk about analytics all the time that point to guys need rest at certain points of the year to be strong toward the end, and he's. Uh, a classic example of that because he is young. We forget how young he is, and we forget how
Yeah.
inexperienced he is at the starting level. And Narvaez, same exact thing. You're talking about a guy who really has not had much experience at the big league level. He, in my opinion, got snubbed at the All Star break because he was riding right. He was out there
Hmm.
offensively, defensively, handling the pitchers extremely well. Got snubbed at the All Star break, and now you can see he's starting to get a little tired. He's got a few nagging little things kind of hampering him a little bit. Connor Wong picking up the slack a little bit. But yeah, it's very important to be able to get your rest when you can because it could be a long, grueling season for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking back to that Garrett Crochet start, and I was wondering, I was like, okay, this stuff seems fine, but guys seem to like, did they have something? They just seem to be leaning on it a little bit more. Like, I did the homer for me. I think it was, I think it was the homer that put them up. No, but what I believe he gave him a homer one of those games, the first game in Houston. But just the way the guys were, the swings off of him, I'm like, okay, this is a sign. Is just a bad outing, or is this a reflection of just where he is physically?
To me, his fastball out of the chute was 99 miles an hour. It was playing,
Yeah.
right? And for some reason, in the middle of that I don't know, second, third inning, I started to see him start to really mix in breaking balls frequently. Too many, in my opinion. He switched the mix
Hmm.
up early. And for me, as a pitcher, I was always taught always to pitch to your strengths rather than to the offense's weakness, right? If you feel like your best pitch is a fastball, if you're locating that well, stick to it, right? You don't want to go out there and say, okay, these guys are aggressive. I'm just going to continually throw a ton of breaking balls when you got 99, 100 in your back pocket. So go out there, pitch to your strengths. Try not to overthink it. Oftentimes, pitchers are overthinking it. Bueller's another guy that I feel has got 7 pitches that he can throw, but why? Right? You've got a good
Yeah.
94, 95. We saw 96 2 outings ago from Bueller, but he
Hmm.
continually tries to throw every pitch starting from the first inning, right? It's just too much. It's too much. Find
Yeah.
2 or 3 of those pitches early on that you can control, command in and out of the zone. And if you can, great. If 1 or 2 of those don't work out, you got a few other behind that might work. But you don't have to work in 7 pitches every inning, every at bat, which just seemed like was kind of been his downfall so far this season.
Yeah, the only guy I can know that I've seen to throw 7 pitches effectively, I think probably like Nate Eovaldi, right? I mean, but again, like
Well, the words
he's a guy
effectively,
who
right? You said effectively. That's the
effect
thing.
yeah,
Native Aldi gets
effectively.
ahead. Yes.
Yeah.
I tell
I
you,
love watching that guy pitch in the playoffs and down the stretch. I mean, he's having a great run right now, as we see in the second half of the season. But yeah, I'm totally with you on the pitch mix. It becomes too much, Lenny. Like it just becomes like, for me, it's become like a periodic table of pitching, right? It's like Like everybody wants to throw a cutter, everybody wants to throw a sweeper, everybody wants to throw the slider to the back foot. But like, what are your strengths? I remember reading an article one time about like Sonny Gray with the Yankees, and he said part of his trouble with the Yankees was that they wanted him to throw a slider but they wanted him to throw it when he was behind in the count or like on like pitches. He's like, dude, like my slider sucks. Like it's just like a show me pitch to get to hopefully induce some chase when I'm ahead 0-2. Like, and I'm just using it in 0-2 count, not 1-2. I'm using it in 0-2 and 0-2 only. That's how much I just don't believe in it. But he would say he would be 0-0, call for a slider, slider. And all of a sudden he's looking up and he's down 2-0. And then now he's okay, now I have to groove in a fastball here. And he throws a fastball and it just gets crushed. So, and now you see Sonny now, like he's sort of turned the page as he's left New York. And I don't think it had anything to do with him. Oh, he can't pitch in New York. I was like, no, sometimes it's just an arsenal issue where those things just necessarily don't match up and people are just trying to reinvent the wheel too much.
I think the key word, and you said it, was belief, right? If you don't
Yeah.
have belief in a pitch and you're forced to throw it, guess what? That's not going to be a good pitch. You got to have conviction. We hear that a lot. You don't have conviction in a pitch, you're going to throw it up there and it's going to get hammered. That's huge. But listen, I mean, they went 2-4 on the road. The last 24, 13-11. Do you think that put a damper, or is this team, do they have the resiliency to bounce back, especially now that they're coming back home?
I think they've played really, really well at home, Lenny, right? And I think now this isn't a Marlins team that you should take lightly, right? They went out and they swept the Yankees and they went out and did did really well against Cleveland as well. Like they're playing really, really, really good baseball. However, I think the Red Sox have really played better at home. Jarren Duran is excellent at home. I think that the Fenway, the Green Monster plays for them. Alex Bregman's been excellent all around. But I just see them as a team. This team is just a lot different for me this year versus last year, this run. And particularly for me, it starts on the left side of the infield because I'm just looking at that. It just seems just to be a wall over there. Like nothing gets through Trevor Story and Alex Bregman as a tandem. I think that duo right there defensively is probably one of the better defensive teams in baseball, defensive duos in baseball, left side infields in baseball. If we're talking about, so sort of just like if we're going position by position and looking at the shortstops and third basemen around the league. And so it just feels different defensively because there were so many times last year where it just seemed like there was an error that sparked an inning, right? Or a rally. And it seems like there's been times this year where I'm like, okay, here comes the avalanche. But Alex Bregman makes a nice play to sort of quell some of the I guess the frustration or angst that comes in those times that we've been known to see with these Red Sox teams throughout the years. Or Trevor Story makes a play at shortstop that sort of quells the emotions of everybody in the stand and say, okay, we can sort of relax a little bit. That's what they lacked last year, and I think having that this year is just something that we have not seen in a while. So yeah, that's 13-11. It's not the best mark. But again, they've played a lot of good teams, and they're playing in a division, by the way, that is very, very mid. Everybody's playing mid baseball, with the exception of like the Toronto Blue Jays, who, by the way, people still don't necessarily believe in, right? They're like, how are they doing this with like only like a plus 45 run differential? Like, I know they have a great pitching staff, but it just seems like you just feel like they're, at least throughout the years, their runs don't last that long, despite the talent that they have. And so now people are just sort of out on them. But so I'm looking at this division, I'm saying, yeah, 13-11, that's okay, fine, whatever. But I think if they just can compete for this next month or so, I think they'll be in pretty good position for a playoff spot, or at least to at least have a chance at making it as well.
All right, I totally agree. The defense, especially, the defense is going to make the pitching staff pitch with more conviction because they're going to try to pitch to contact. It's going to make them that much better. But Julian, up next, we're going to talk about Roman Anthony's growth and growing pains. Yeah, that's a question mark. All right, on 3 to the Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers. We'll see you soon.
310 to Left is presented by your New England Ford dealers, who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse. a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 310 to Left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox.
All right, welcome back to 310 to Left. I'm here with Julian McWilliams, CBS national reporter. Thanks for joining me, Julian. Let's get right into it. Roman Anthony, let's talk about this kid. He's been outstanding. He's been a phenom. You're talking about a conversation with, you're putting him in the same categories early on with Ted Williams, Babe Ruth, Mel Ott, Barry Bonds. The list goes on. Talk about what makes this kid so special.
I first think it's his personality, Lenny. For me, like when you talk to him, it just seems like, and we've used this. I feel like it's becoming cliche as much as we use it now. Like he's mature beyond his years, and I think that helps him. Like he's in the clubhouse, and he doesn't necessarily take up space, but you feel his as a rookie, but you feel his presence, right? And you're gonna feel his presence. I think even more as he gets more acclimated to a clubhouse of becoming a leader, and you just see the controlled heartbeat for me is something that I think is special, and you don't see it, right? You see like guys like Christian Campbell come up, and it just seemed to be a little bit too fast for him. Nothing seems fast for Roman now, right? Maybe in the outfield, I'll say that. Like he looks a tad bit like sort of hesitant in that realm, but from the offensive standpoint, it's his takes, and then it's when he swings, he's doing damage. A lot of times, I think what frustrated me most with somebody like Tristan Casas was like, sure, he didn't swing outside the zone, but then he didn't necessarily take advantage of pitches in the zone at that young of age, like Roman Anthony does. And Roman Anthony seems to just be taking advantage of everything. So I'm looking at him, and I just think Red Sox fans should be excited about this because I think he's a guy that's going to be here for a really, really long time and have MVP votes once it's all said and done.
Yeah, they locked him out. It's going to be at least the better part of the next decade, right? And good thing. I mean, because he's what I've seen from him so far has been nothing more than extraordinary as far as the take rate. 4 walks the other day, a home run, a clutch double before that. You just don't see this from young ball players. The heartbeat is continually slow. He's going to improve in the outfield. He's not Rafaela, but nobody is. It's not really fair to him to compare that. But you do hear, and I don't like using the word noise that much, but you do hear things out from the outward coming in about how he's got a high whiff rate. He hits the ball on the ground a lot, and a lot of people are talking about possibly tinkering with his swing a little bit. I totally disagree with that. I feel like you have to leave him alone. The more he walks, the more the pitchers are going to come in the zone to him. And he's going to be sitting there ready. You start tinkering with the guy's swing, now you're going to start to see the batting average dip. You might get a couple home runs, a few more home runs, but this is the type of kid where you don't want to be the guy to go out there and make him start failing more often than he does, because this game's hard as it is. And yeah, when you're going to face a Bennett Sousa the other day with the best slider in the league, you're going to have some whiffs every now and then. But don't change this kid. Let him go out there and play baseball. He's pretty good at it, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Lenny, can you hear me? Because I think my connection's going a little bit
I
bad.
can. I gotcha.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I definitely think he's a guy that we're looking at and can be sort of. You don't want to tinker too much, especially at his young age too, Lenny. Like he's still growing, right? Like I think, like he's gonna get bigger. He's gonna get stronger, right? And I think as those things progress, like your swing changes, your mechanics change naturally because you're gonna get stronger. You're gonna get bigger. Like he's a big guy already. And I think if we're just looking at this in its totality, I think it's a player that's gonna, like I said, he's gonna be here for a really, really long time. He's gonna put up really good numbers. And man, like just his takes, like I have never seen a guy that young have that good of an eye. It's almost like Soto level for me. And I know that's probably embellishing, but I just haven't seen it up close and personal on a day-to-day basis like I've seen with Roman Anthony.
You're right. The numbers, I mean, you're not embellishing at all because the numbers point to him being having the second best eye in baseball right behind Juan Soto. So, yeah, I tell you what, you can tinker with his swing. Just wait till he's retiring, right? We're tinker with his golf swing
Yeah.
and then just leave the baseball swing alone. Nobody wants this kid to go out and get ruined by somebody that doesn't necessarily have the talent that he has. You know, people that don't play baseball. Don't tinker with this guy. He's pretty good. But what do you think about him being such a young player? He's only 21. Do you think he's being challenged too often, staying in the game against left-handed hitters? Are we expecting too much from him at the first spot in the lineup so far?
I think we can. No, I don't. In short, I don't. I think he's one of those rare breeds, right? I think one of his. What he look? We did to Framber Valdez last week or a week ago in Boston when he was there. I mean, took him off of Fenway, and Framber is one of the better left-handers in baseball. And then what he did when he hit the homer against the lefty in Houston. I think this is a guy that you sort of just put out there and sort of leave alone. And there's certain guys that are just rare like that, right? Like obviously Bobby Witt for me is at a different level than anybody, but Bobby Witt wasn't necessarily a guy that Kansas City brought in. They were necessarily saying, "Hey, we got to hide him," because I think they realized from an early on that he was a guy, right? He was a real guy. And I think similarly, though to a lesser degree, I think Roman Anthony is a guy, and I think he's been one of their better players. And at this point in the season, I think if the guy's showing that he can handle it, if the kid's showing that he can handle big league pitching and be successful with it, there's no reason to tinker and mess with that. I know Alex Cora is a guy is a manager who does not like having his lefties hit against lefties early on. We saw it even with Rafael Devers, who's one of the better premier hitters in the big leagues, right? He didn't have him batting against lefties early on. But with Roman, if he's not doing it with Roman, there's a reason for it, and there's a reason why he believes he can do it. So I don't think they're necessarily throwing him out there in the fire because I don't feel like Roman feels it the way other guys have felt it, at least to this point.
Yeah, and there's this balance between patience and urgency, right? And when you're at the first spot in the order, you like to see him get on base. You want to see him take certain pitches, which he continually does. But when it comes down to urgency, yeah, you get to two strikes, swing away. And every now and then, I mentioned Sousa the other day with a great slider, one of the best sliders in the league from the left side.
Hmm.
You want him to swing the bat in two strike counts and try to get the ball in the air, yes. But he's just the best of both worlds, right? You know, Raphael is an example who swings a ton. He's very aggressive, but he swings outside the strike zone, right? And there's that balance with him too, where
Yeah,
you want him to continue to be aggressive. That's what he's good at, swinging the bat, right? Could keep swinging it, but swing inside the strike zone. Make those decisions where you see something that looks like a good pitch to hit. That's when you want to be aggressive to it, not necessarily in a 2-0 count, slider down and away, or a fastball 97 above the hands in a hitter's count, right? You want to wait until you get a good pitch to hit one type of pitch in one zone. But as far as Anthony, I feel like he's so mature when it comes to that right now. The balance is already there, right? He already knows when to make that
yeah,
decision to swing, when to make that decision to take. And, some of this stuff's really hard to teach. You just have to kind of learn it at the big league level.
yeah. Is there a 21-year-old or a young guy that you played with that reminded you sort of this run that he's been on this early on?
Man, that's tough. As far as the talent, I did play with this guy, but I played against him. But I played with Josh Hamilton, who
Mm,
was an extremely good athlete. This is a guy that could dunk a basketball behind his head with two hands, throw a football 50 yards, could throw off the mound 95. We had the same agent. We used to work out in the off season together for a few
okay.
years. And when it comes to talent and athleticism and just making the game look super easy, he's a guy that kind of Anthony's doing the same thing. But I love the Jordan Alvarez comp as well. Alex Bregman said the other day that, man, you look at the stance, you look at the swings, and you look at the early success in his career, it's very similar to Jordan. And that's very, very high praise because when he's continually done through his career, man, if he if he could put up those numbers, you're talking a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I know. I look, and on your Josh Hamilton point, in 2008, just a sidebar, my dad took me as a high school graduation gift to his Yankee Stadium home run derby, and it was crazy. Like it was by far the greatest thing I've seen in of my sports livelihood. Just, I mean, he swings the bat like a wiffle ball bat. Like
Oh,
it's like nothing was there.
I know. Trust me, I know. He hit a line drive that came back and hit my forearm and my glove arm, bounced off my arm and hit my leg.
Oh.
I ended up picking the ball up and throwing him out. But the next day, I had huge, just like these 8-inch circular bruises on my forearm and my leg. So yeah, I know very well that wiffle ball bat swing that you're talking about. But hey, up next, we're going to talk about pitching rotation trends on 310 to left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers. See you in a bit. All right, welcome back to 310 to Left. I'm here with Julian McWilliams, CBS national reporter. Thank you, Julian, for joining us. Let's get into it. One of the most important parts of this Red Sox team winning ball games is starting pitching and the depth. You think they got a little bit more depth after getting Dustin May, his first outing, 3 2/3. People were a little bit disappointed. I'm not going to judge him on one outing, either way, good or bad. But at the end of the day, his last outing, he looked outstanding. What do you got on him?
Yeah, I mean, he has the stuff, he has the talent. It's just a matter of consistency for him. I think there's times where you see him, he goes out, he looks like I don't know. He looks as dominant as a dominant pitcher. He looks like sometimes like an ace, and there's sometimes he looks like he's not a starter at all. Right? I think there's the Dodgers put him in a place where he wasn't going to be a part of their rotation, and essentially they thought it was best for him to go get an opportunity where he felt he could be a starter. Well, if we're inking him in with the Red Sox and what they sort of lacked in their pitching staff, that was certainly a possibility. So if he can just figure out a way to corral his stuff, I think that's the biggest thing with him. But I'm not too quite sure if he can do it because he's already 27, 28 years old. I know he's dealt with injuries, obviously, but and at this point of the season, trying to figure out on the fly, I mean, it's a tough thing to do. But the Red Sox pitching staff in its entirety, I think it's somewhat of a question mark because you have Buehler. I mean, you have Garrett Crochet, and then it just seems to be a lot of what ifs after that, right? And I think if you're looking at that in a playoff picture, I think their offense will be there. Their offense has always figured out a way to be there. Historically, Boston teams have always been really good offenses, but the pitching is something that I still question. The starting pitching in particular, because I felt like they had a lane to go out there and acquire somebody. And which, by the way, like, man, that Joe Ryan thing, like, could you imagine? I saw him pitch against the Yankees the other night. I mean, just having him and Crochet back to back, and that might be something the Red Sox revisit in the offseason. But when you start to think about those things, I was just imagining him in that rotation. I'm like, that would have been a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at this last 6 game road trip, it shows you how important starting pitching is. And I feel like the starting pitching up to this point, up to that point, was pretty solid. They were getting deep into games. You've seen a career year for Bayo uh, and Giolito making a bounce back. It
That's
was
right.
kind
Yeah,
of
I
up
forgot
and
about
down,
Bayo
and
as
then
well. Bale's
yeah,
pitched really
I mean,
well.
he's been solid, and but as far as May, if he can have that same type of mentality going through the rest of his outings for this season, he's continually 0-2-1-2. That's the biggest difference. And you mentioned the word
Hmm.
stuff. We talk about stuff all the time. You know who has stuff? Jordan Hicks. Hicks has great stuff. But at the end of
Hmm.
the day, you got to get strike one. You got to get strike two. You have to trust that stuff inside the zone. Get ahead. Get ahead with strikes. Get them out with balls. And when you're 2-0, 2-1 continually, it's no way to live. Hitters, big league hitters are going to go out and they're going to take advantage of that. They're going to start to capitalize. They're going to take their walks and they're going to start to continually hit home runs. That's just what they do. But May, back to May, he has an uptick in that cutter. He's got that sweeper, and he's got a really good fastball. So if he can go out there and throw strikes and pitch with the type of urgency that he had the other day, he was bouncing off the mound after innings because he
Hmm.
had a ton of confidence. He had conviction in every pitch. He was dialed in with his catcher, and that's the type of ingredients you need to go out every 5 days and have success. I mean, rather than saying, okay, I'm gonna pitch, this number of sliders, this number of cutters, this number of fastballs to this lineup. Go out there and have some feel. right? You know exactly
Yeah.
what you feel in the moment. It's going to help you have that conviction and go right after these hitters. It's very important to have that confidence day in and day out.
Yeah, and for me, like he kind of not obviously he his stuff is like upticks a little bit more than his, but he kind of reminds me of Hauk in a way of like just the body positioning and just all those loose limbs and arms going everywhere, and how Andrew Bailey had to sort of corral Hauk and put him in and get him into this like phone booth kind of thing where he does sort of, yes, use your limbs and everything, but there's a certain way we have to be able to control it. And obviously Hauk had the year that he had last year. I know his All-Star break, post All-Star break didn't go as well, but I think that probably was in the when the injuries was probably started, right? When he started to feel it a little bit. But pre All-Star break, you saw him just say, "Hey, I'm just out there. I'm playing a game of catch." Right. And I think with people who have like I keep saying it, but people who have like stuff like that, I think a lot of times you just have to put them in a position where it's like, let it play. Like, just go have a game of catch. And I think if Dustin May, if they can figure out in this month plus, I wish they had him for another season because I would be fascinated to know what Andrew Bailey could do with him, at least for with a full year under his belt of him being able to look underneath the hood at what needs to be able to change and what the pitching infrastructure, what the Red Sox thought what needs to change. But if they can figure out some way to give him that little, hey, we're playing a game of catch, I think he can be really, really big for this team down the stretch.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. Hauk and May are extremely similar when it comes to east, west versus north, south. Certain
Yeah.
guys use the top of the zone, the bottom of the zone. Giolito's that guy with the fastball up, change up down. He does have the glove side slider, but you're right. They're very carousel versus Ferris wheel. And oftentimes when you have that type of motion where you're super long and lengthy on side to side, your slider, your cutter can get kind of big. It can start in the zone, but hitters start to realize that and they're taking because it does get so big, and they realize that it's going to be outside the strike zone. But the run prevention unit, the pitching coaches, and everybody, if they can dial in May, if they can say, okay, this is what you're doing at your best, use that cutter because it is shorter, it is a little bit more concise, and it's a swing and miss pitch when he can locate it and command it in certain counts. Hopefully that's what they can do to make him at his best. But back to another guy that signed with the Red Sox, has a ton of upside, but just has been inconsistent throughout this year. Walker Buehler. Let's talk about Walker. We hit on him earlier, but just the inconsistency and the fact that he shows at certain points in this season that he could go out there and dial it in. Philadelphia, Chicago, a couple examples of the games where he really went out there and dealt. Talk about Walker and what he needs to do to dial it in.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the headline. It's the inconsistency, right? I think that game the other night was indicative of sort of how his season has been. I mean, there's like one or two innings that seem to say everything to like dictate his entire start. And I think the other like, he gave the homer to Pena, gave it 2 runs in the first, and then was cruising, right? I think at one point he retired 9 or 10 straight batters, and then he can't get out the sixth inning, and it ends up being a situation where he's given up 4 runs, and you're looking and say, okay, it wasn't necessarily that good of a start. I think this is another guy, right? I think he was a guy that was sort of heavy fastball. He was sort of that north and south guy, and then he's tried to reinvent himself and try to mix in all these pitches. It seems to be overwhelming for me, right? Like we talked about it earlier in the show of how, hey, just stick to this, stick to that. But he seems to be throwing the whole entire kitchen sink. I don't know if that's his like survival tactic because he doesn't necessarily feel that confident in any of his pitches, or if that's just like sort of that's what they're asking of him to do, right? But in either case, I just think it's just he just doesn't look as confident and convicted in what he's throwing for the entire season because a lot of that stuff is still new. And I think he talked about it earlier before he even joined the Red Sox. No, when he did join the Red Sox on his introductory Zoom call, saying, "Yeah, I've implemented a lot of pitches. I can't be the same pitcher I was years ago." And I think that probably had to do with some injuries and stuff. But man, like at your centerpiece still has to be who you are. And I think he's sort of deviated from who he is at times.
Yeah, and he's no slouch when it comes to the fastball. I mean, 2 outings ago, we saw 96 coming out. It's typically 93,
Yeah.
94. And I'm always under the mentality that, okay, velocity is important, but commanding is more important. If you can command 93, 94, you're going to be successful, right? Don't get away from that. You don't have to throw 97, 98. Criswell is a classic example of a guy that throws 91, 92, mixes in a little cutter, has a little change up, and went out there and is very successful going out there and pitching rather than throwing. So, just getting back to that mentality where, okay, one or two, maybe three pitches, dial it in, locate those. And for him, it's been the walks and the home runs. And you said it. He was kind of at that first inning, but then again, the walks and the home runs reared their ugly head. And we're talking going into the last outing, his ERA in the first was, I believe, over 8, and it was 12 in the fourth inning. Right, those 2 innings just continually bite him, and he was rolling. He had the opportunity to go out there and have a really good bounce back start, and continue to build some confidence. But again, we're seeing the same stuff over and over again. But what's your opinion on if this team makes the playoffs? Who are the 4 guys they're going to hand the ball to? In your opinion, who are the guys at this point today they would hand the ball to?
You know, I obviously Crochet's there. He's one of them. Bale, Giolito, and who am I left with?
This
Look,
is the
I
tough one
think you
right
still
here. Who are
have.
you going to give it to?
I still think you have to go with Buehler, right? Because he's been there before, right? And I think there have been certain guys that when the playoffs come on, they do certain things and they turn into different people. And he pitched well in the playoffs last year. I mean, he hasn't looked horrible, right? But I think I would just have a tough time handing a ball to like a Cooper Criswell in a playoff or a Richard
Yeah,
Fitz over
sure.
Walker Bueller for even if it's just one start, where it's just like this guy can turn back the clock and be something else. I'm betting on that. I just did a segment with our friend Rob Bradford where it's like where we're talking and saying how a lot of people just try to say, "Hey, I want to go out on this guy because if you look underneath the hood, he has this, this, and this," and it's like, no, well, I want to go with the guy that I know has this above the hood. Like what? Like I don't want to always have to look underneath the hood for things. So for Walker Buehler, certainly the both of the above hood, or if there is any above hood, and then the beneath the hood has looked bad. It has not looked good. But he does have experience on his side, and he did go 10 scoreless innings last year in the playoffs. So when people are talking about he's pitching for his job, I think there is a case where there is some case where it's start to start with him, right? Like his numbers are DFAable. It's not even a word, but DFAable numbers, right? If we're talking about it truthfully and honestly, like those aren't the numbers that you would probably ride with. But I always go back to what if they make the playoffs, and what if he can go on a run? And he did go on a run last year. And there's data points, there's information out there because we're in the information age dictating or showing that he has proven himself in the playoffs. If this were a team that wasn't in the playoff hunt, and I'll be like, okay, like just cut your ties with them tomorrow and just see what you have, right? But if you can hold him on till at least now that you're playing into September in meaningful baseball games, you might see a change there. There's a different switch with these veteran guys, and you can't count that out.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, now, right now, if the playoffs start today, yeah, you got to give it to the guy that has playoff experience, the guy that's been outstanding in the playoffs, and he has, and he's been super inconsistent this season so far. We've seen a few outings where if you could just dial that in, that's the guy you want to hand the ball to. But with that said, if Dustin May goes out and throws another 3 or 4 outings like he threw the other
Yeah,
day, you got to start considering him as an option. And again, we go back to the word stuff. The stuff's there for both of them. It's just who's going to dial it in and be game ready when it comes down to that time when playoffs do in fact occur. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. But starting pitching is extremely important. We've seen that, especially this past road trip. Now that they're back home, how important do you feel it is for Lucas Giolito to dial it in, set the tone for this game number 1 at Fenway Park?
it's very important, Lenny. I think it's this series is more important than because they survived the gauntlet, right? And they survived that, and I said like went 9-9. And I think if you can ask for anything, it's that, hey, you're back at home, you're playing a team that has been a very good team, and you shouldn't take lightly. But it's not the Padres, it's not the Dodgers, right? You need to be able to take advantage of these games, and I think for Lucas Giolito, he's talked about it. He's the veteran. He's the veteran here, and I think he's going to have to be the guy that shows up because man, you need him down the stretch. This is why they went out and got him, right? Because they felt like he could be a part of a winning atmosphere. They felt like once you got him in there, pitching infrastructure, he could be a guy that can go out there and go 6-7 innings. And I think Lucas Giolito holds himself accountable and holds himself to those standards as well. So it's extremely important for him to set the tone because he's one of their guys. And if you're one of the guys, you got to be able to perform.
Absolutely. Okay, so next we're going to talk about this next really important stretch. They've got 34 games. 8 of the next 11 series are against teams that are sub 500. They got some work to do, but we're going to talk about that next on 310 to Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers. See you in a bit.
310 to Left is presented by your New England Ford dealers who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse, a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 310 to Left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox.
All right, welcome back to 310 to Left. We're here with Julian McWilliams, national reporter for CBS. Julian, welcome in. Let's talk about the next 11 series. 8 of those are versus sub 500 clubs. They have to go out there and do some work to go out and get where they want to go, especially with Toronto and Detroit ending the season. 2 tough opponents. Talk about this stretch and how important it is for the rest of the season.
I think it's really important to gain ground here, right? I think if you're looking at the teams that they're playing, you got to be able to do work against those teams. And look, the Red Sox have struggled sometimes against those teams in recent years, against the teams below 500. I remember last year when they came out of the break, they had a 3-game set against Toronto, and after losing to the Dodgers, I mean, it's not against Toronto, against the Colorado Rockies out in Colorado, and they didn't take care of business there. I think they lost 2 or 3, or they might have gotten swept. And I just think you just can't afford to have games like that, right? Because everything just seems to be so tight, Lenny. And this season seems to be such a season of parity in the American League that I think that if you're looking at all the teams that are in it, like they're legit in it. Like Cleveland's lost out on two relievers. One of them being the one of the better closers in the game, in Emmanuel Clase, and they're just a half a game behind the Yankees. Right? We go back to June. I remember we were doing a segment on Nesson, and we were talking about the division's out of play. They're 9 games behind the Yankees, or 10 games behind the Yankees, and now they're a game and a half up on the Yankees, the Red Sox. So I think if you're looking, seems to be so unpredictable, right? Like, I mean, even across the league, like the Padres, they were down 9 games from the Dodgers in July 4th. Now they're up a game and going into a pivotal series. So it just seems to be like all these games seem to matter. And I think instead of the Red Sox having to play catch up all the time last year, where it's like, I remember a famous word for Alex Cora was ground, but we didn't lose any ground, right? And he just kept saying that after each series loss or after each loss that they had, is because nobody around them was winning. Kansas City was was blowing up, even though they made a little bit of run in the playoffs. Minnesota was 9-18 in September last year and flamed out and didn't make the playoffs. And the Red Sox are playing catch up the entire time and never quite got there. Well, now they're being the hunted. It's a little bit different, right? They're the guys they're sort of protecting this wild card spot, or even trying to get potentially even still win the division, because I still think that's up for grabs. Like I said, I'm not sold on the Toronto Blue Jays. So with that being said, you have to be able to take care of these teams that are under 500. Like the Red Sox control their fate. If they don't make the playoffs, this is completely on them because I feel like they've put themselves in position to be able to do so. Sure, we can talk about the deadline and them not doing much at the deadline. Of course, that can be a contributing factor as well. But man, the schedule itself, you got to be able to get it done.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And from what I've seen so far for the Red Sox this season is they've gotten beat a couple times, but early in the season especially they were beating themselves. Right, we saw a lot of
Mm-hmm.
one-run games where they couldn't do the good thing, the small things correct, fundamental baseball in the infield. The outfield's been superior, but they're still leading the big leagues in errors. They've gotten better. They're not giving up as many unearned runs because of the errors. But you got to play a standard of baseball that's winning baseball, playoff baseball. You can't continually go out and make certain mistakes. But you're right though. Baltimore is always trouble. I don't care what their record says; they're going to give you a hard time. Tampa Bay is always the same way. And you mentioned
Yeah.
Cleveland, 7-3 in their last 10. They can smell it. They want to get there. So you got to go out there, even if you are playing sub 500 teams. It's the type of baseball you're playing, and I mean, we'll see. Uh, it's about doing the little things right in a nutshell, right?
It,
So,
it's gonna look. I'm so excited and for playoff baseball and a relevant baseball in September because there's been so many Septembers where there have been just like it just seems to be like a slow death, Lenny. Like where you're just okay, they're in it, but they're not really in it. And yeah, the playoff odds aren't there, but they're only 3.5 games out, and it just seems like. But they also have to leap all these teams that are also 1.5 games out. So it just is just I'm excited for these fans and for us, the media, to get a front row seat or a press box seat to some great baseball in September because we have not seen that a while here.
yeah, I mean, in these 34 games, I'm thinking you got to at least win 20 of those games. If you win 20 games, that's going to put you in a spot where you're 86 and 70 going into the last two series versus Toronto
Hmm.
and Detroit. If you play good baseball there, if you take maybe three, you're up to 89. If you're up to 90, I mean, you put yourself in a good spot. But again, it's going to be tough playing big league clubs. Sub 500 or not can be a task, and oftentimes the Red Sox, we've seen them beat themselves no matter who they're playing. They're going to hit if they can pitch, if they can get 5, 6 innings from the starters. It's going to help the bullpen stay rested and go out there and continue to throw strikes. But it's kind of in their hands right now. You don't want to leave it up to everybody else because it's going to get down to it. And I mean, we'll see. Depth is a huge factor, right? You need reliable arms. In San Diego, with the bullpen is a classic example.
Oh my gosh! Like it just seems like when it gets to like the fifth, sixth inning, like with San Diego, the game is done. It's done. It's over with. So you got to beat him early. I'm again, Lenny. I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this run, but you got to be able to take care of the Marlins tonight and for the next two games. Like if you come out here with a sweep, that puts you in really good position. You got to get all the games you can because this division just seems to, or this league seems to be so unpredictable at this point.
Yeah. So starters are the most important thing, in my opinion. I feel like you got to go out there
Yeah.
and have starting pitching. Bullpen comes around. They're going to hit, right? If they can hit the ball, if you can play good baseball, hit behind runners, drop a bunt down every now and then, it's important to go out there and play that style of baseball. But Julian, I just want to thank you for coming on today, man. I appreciate your insight as always. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for coming in, man.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Thanks, Lenny. Thanks for having me. It's going to be exciting. I think just the additions of even having an Alex Bregman in the lineup and having him in that clubhouse is huge for this team. I think this is why they went out and got him was for moments like this to sort of bring the guys in. So and so corral the guys. So it's going to be exciting. And again, thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man. I think you're exactly right. Having him not only at the plate and in the clubhouse, but defensively is huge. So, again, thanks again. Thanks for joining us, everybody out there. 310 to Left is brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F Series, America's best selling truck for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. Big home series coming up against the Marlins. We'll see exactly what the Red Sox are made of. They've shown resiliency this season, and let's see what they bring to the ballpark tonight. Thanks for joining us.